My name is Dan Day Jr. I'm the creator and writer of the Hitless Wonder movie blog, and we're here in downtown Leidick. And with me is my good friend Paul Lyzun, the director of the critically acclaimed documentary Without Charity.
Hello, everybody, and it's good to be here, and it's good to be in the heart of Leidick, Indiana, and to be talking to all of you for the first episode of our kind of a podcast that hopefully that we're gonna keep doing here for all of you. So
It's kind of a test run, so if I will definitely be posting this on the Hitless Wonder movie page and the Hitless Wonder Facebook page. So if we can get any feedback on whether you'd like to hear more of this or less of this, or if you fell asleep, just please let us know.
you never ever want to hear my voice again.
or my voice either.
So we're very open to criticism, and even
Because we spend a lot of time criticizing things, so
We do.
we expect to get some backlash. Anyway, obviously the big thing in movies now is The Force Awakens, and you and I have seen it. We've actually seen it together,
yes, we have.
and I think we both kind of have the same opinion that it is a very good film, but not the greatest film ever made.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you, I didn't walk out of the theater thinking that it was the greatest thing ever made. But I mean, I was very satisfied with the film in general.
No, it's obviously not the prequels. I think.
Oh no.
A company like Disney, they're not going to, the amount of money that they paid to acquire Lucasfilm, they're certainly not going to screw it up. I mean, you can say what you want about Disney, but the people running it, they're not stupid. There's a reason why Disney is Disney, and they're not going to make a movie that's just going to annoy people. I think there are some people who are starting to nitpick it, and I think what it is, when the movie first came out, I think people were so happy that it wasn't like the prequels, and there was this huge wave going on, and you see it in social media. When something becomes popular, so many people on the internet want to be part of that popularity and be part of that success, so the wave gets bigger and bigger. It's kind of like, in the last week we've seen a couple of famous people, David Bowie, Alan Rickman, pass away, and it's almost like, I'm not trying to downgrade their passing or their talent, but you see this thing on the internet where people are almost competing with one another to prove that they loved the legendary person who passed more than everybody else did, and people are trying to top themselves with memories and with tributes and all that. And I think when something like The Force Awakens comes out and becomes massively popular, people just want to ride that wave. And now that the wave is kind of crested, I think you're starting to see people come out and say, well, it's just a remake of the first movie and it's not really all that good. You see kind of a backlash.
Yeah, I've seen that too, and I don't know why that necessarily has to happen in that kind of order too. And again, I think it's a very noble effort by Disney's first Star Wars film to Episode 7 was good. It was very good. I didn't think it was great. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much I saw it 3 times.
Yes, I've seen it 3 times as well. I mean, I saw Star Wars, the original Star Wars, when I was 8 years old. And anybody who's read any of my blogs or knows me personally knows how much Star Wars, basically means to me. I know that sounds kind of lame, but I mean that's the way it is.
No, but I mean at the same time, I think that these films have a place for all of us. I mean, again, there are people out there that haven't seen the films and never will see the films and are fine with not seeing them, but it's just too hard to ignore these films in popular culture, especially for how popular
It's modern mythology.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that don't like the fact that it is modern mythology, but you also have to think about this when it comes to Star Wars. We live now in a world where we are inundated with geek culture. I mean, everything that is is popular in entertainment basically comes from geek culture, and that all basically started with Star Wars. So whether you like Star Wars or not, whether you're annoyed by it or not, and I know there's a lot of film buffs out there that can't stand Star Wars, and they blame modern day Hollywood on what Star Wars is, and they have a point, but you have to admit that Star Wars basically changed entertainment and still changing entertainment. I mean, you can almost say that when it comes to the film history, there's before Star Wars and there's after Star Wars.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it kind of predates Star Wars just barely, because again, some people say it may have been Jaws that was one of the first films that did that.
Yeah, Jaws was definitely the first summer blockbuster, I guess you could say. I'm sure somebody out there would probably has a better technical answer. But I think the thing with Jaws is Star Wars was more of a family type movie, whereas Jaws, was Jaws rated PG when it first came out?
Yeah, and that's something that we should talk about in our future episodes is the
rating system sucks.
The rating system. Well, yeah,
it has to do with money instead of actually what audience it's supposed to be watching. Yeah.
But what PG was 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, compared to what PG is now. I mean, of course, the evolution of the the PG-13 rating, which was basically a cash grab of a light R rating. But I'll digress, and then we can get back to that at a later episode. But yeah, I believe Jaws was rated PG, and because again, I don't think Jaws would have made as much money as it did if it was rated R.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that, and then we can also talk about the fact that probably certain studios can get lighter ratings due to
because Jaws was Universal, and Universal, of course, is a main studio. It's funny. I mean, I know we're going off track here, which I'm sure we're going to the whole time we're going to be talking. But the last time I saw Jaws, it was like watching an independent, low-budget feature. I mean, it wasn't. Yes. I mean, I'd seen it several times. It wasn't like I wasn't used to it. But if you look at Jaws now, it's nothing like the blockbusters of today. It's almost like it's a very self-contained. It has a low-budget, independent feel to it.
Yeah, it basically would compare to a film like It Follows. It's a lower-budget horror film that is created. It's not the R-rated horror films like Halloween, but it's one of those that.
And that's kind of why I think you really have to go to Star Wars as the beginning of basically modern entertainment, because Star Wars is more of and Star Wars was not a big budget movie for the time, but it has more of the elements that we see in just about every big budget high concept movie today. But
well, the original budget of Star Wars, in what, $77 was what, $10 million?
Yeah, okay. It was not, really that big of a budget of a film. But actually, when it comes to Star Wars, I'm actually looking forward to Rogue One, because I think, and Paul and I have discussed this, I mean, years ago, the whole Star Wars universe, why somebody wasn't just doing stories about that. I mean, that's where I think I'm actually more excited about those films than I am about the technically real Star Wars films.
Yeah, because I think that you have the ability to expand on this universe without having to necessarily keep with. I mean, of course, you want to keep within kind of like the canon of Star Wars, but again, Disney basically, I think we'll throw that out, with the bathwater, but we'll keep certain elements of that. And I think with stories like Rogue One, you can kind of tell darker stories.
I mean, you're still going to have the PG-13 or the PG rating. I mean, you're not going to, but you can go in a different direction where you don't have to worry about, I mean, in Rogue One, you can kill one of the main characters off if you have to.
Yeah,
I mean, you can do different things with the stories. You can have the Empire, obviously in Rogue One, you can't defeat the Empire at Rogue One,
Well, I mean, but I don't want to spoil anything for who hasn't seen The Force Awakens yet. I mean, it's you just talked about killing main characters, and it's just like, well, so I'm sorry for whoever it's just, you may want to stop right here, but I won't spoil it for people who somehow haven't seen it yet. But
I'm sure there are people out there who haven't seen it.
So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, again, you could develop a main character in Rogue One that may as well not make it to the end credits, and I would be fine with that. I mean, especially if it's written well. So.
Yeah. So, the other thing, the Oscar nominations were announced, and everybody gets all hot and bothered over the Oscars, and Paul and I have our own opinions on that.
Dan knows that I love the Academy Awards. And when the Academy Awards say that a film is the best picture of the year, you betcha that I believe that that film will always be the best picture of that year. So,
No, I've had arguments with several people who are. I told this to Josh Kennedy, my good friend Josh Kennedy, another independent filmmaker. We were discussing people who are not film buffs, who are not getting the films, and I said, well, I refer to those people as civilians, and movie civilians have a tendency to believe that if somebody wins an Oscar, that automatically makes them better than anybody else, and that award is just that, and it's an award. It's not an official branding. You can't say officially that a movie is the best movie of the year. That's like trying to say a painting is the best painting of the year, or a short story is the best short story of the year. I mean, yeah, you can give out awards, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, this is the best film of this year. That's still somebody else's opinion. And what the mainstream media and the studios and the Academy, the Motion Picture Academy, they get a lot of money off of this, so they've basically set it up to where they've convinced people that these awards have some sort of merit, when it's just, I mean, anybody can give out awards. Me, Paul, I mean, I can go on, I can write a blog and say, well, this guy gave the best performance, this actress gave the best performance, but that's still just somebody's opinion.
yeah, and as Dan knows, I love giving out awards, and I think it's when we were having a conversation earlier, because you're just hearing us and not seeing us, but we were,
God forbid you want to do that.
we were watching one of the NFL games on, and Dan brought up a point where it's more or less about the pageantry and the ability now, because of social media, to sit back and actually just discuss the controversies involved rather than the actual artistry involved. And I'm getting back to the actual, talking about the Academy Awards. It's more or less to basically make a story than it is to actually, in my opinion, to honor certain elements of filmmaking.
Here's a fact. Edward G. Robinson was never even nominated for an Academy Award. It's one thing that he never even won one, but just think about the fact he was never even nominated for an Academy Award. So that right there kind of tells you, oh, well, this guy won so many awards, and Meryl Streep's been nominated 20 times, and blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of it has to do with, what movie you're actually on, how much money's being spent on the advertising for that movie, and this idea that somehow you need an Oscar to validate your career. I mean, the big thing now is everybody's going on and on about Leonardo DiCaprio. Will he finally win an award? Will he finally be given what he deserves? Well, number one, how can you say somebody deserves to win any type of award? And Leonardo DiCaprio, no matter how you feel about him, his career is his career. Whether he wins an Oscar or not, that has nothing to do with the definition of his career.
Yeah, I agree. It's like Vancouver Canucks fans. I mean, they deserve the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's
you got to bring in the flying V, don't you?
Exactly. I do have to. Dan and I
and the Sedin brothers.
Yes, Dan and I are currently watching older Lost in Space episodes as we're doing this,
and Dr. Smith looks like he's wearing a civilian version of the famous 1970s Vancouver Canucks Flying V jersey. So if you can get that picture into your head, there you go. And it looks like he's fighting a combination of the Blue Man Group and Run DMC.
Yes.
And what looks like to be a Chinatown set.
So if you want to reference this episode of Lost in Space, I think you've got your Xfinity remote here. I believe it's from season 2.
Yes.
So
the Galaxy Gift, season 2, episode 30, 1967. For all of you Lost in Spacers out there.
Well, and just in case if you want to fact check us here, so
Yes, that's right.
We just want to make sure that we are honest.
Another exciting Saturday night in Leidick, Indiana.
So, well, and luckily enough, we haven't had a train roll by us yet. So that's
Yeah, well, just give it a couple minutes or so.
So we've been lucky in that aspect so far. So, but I mean, again, we're flying off the topic here. But again, as far as the Academy Awards are concerned, I mean, what else should we?
Well, I don't get the whole why people get so excited about watching award shows anyway. Because for me, from my aspect, it's like standing outside of a house and looking through the window and seeing all the cool kids in high school having a party that you would never be invited to. Why people get so worked up over watching celebrities like basically, glad hand one another and pat each other on the back. I don't, and I know I'm being snarky because I'm not a famous, beautiful celebrity, and I'm sure there's a jealousy aspect of it. But I just don't get the whole point of...
I think you're totally selling yourself short. But.
No, but I mean, I don't get why people would want to watch the beautiful people, reward one another.
Well, and also it's funny to me to see then you actually see some of the technical Academy Awards and they go, well, these awards were given, and then it's basically a 20-second
they
snippet.
don't even let the guy, they don't even show the guy.
Yeah, it's basically hockey coverage on ESPN.
Well, you probably you probably know a lot of those awards are actually given out like a day before. They have like a mini ceremony the day before, and I remember Ray Harryhausen, and Paul knows this. I mean, Ray Harryhausen is one of my heroes.
Oh yeah.
They gave Ray Harryhausen a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is basically one of those awards. Oh, you're 80 years old and we never did anything for you, so here's an award. You're a legend. But anyway, they gave out his award at like one of the mini ceremonies before the main ceremony. And I remember reading about this in Starlog. This dates me right here. And I'm thinking, this is Ray freaking Harryhausen. You can't even like let him go up on stage and get his Lifetime Achievement Award. It's like, come on.
I mean, there are certain people that work very, very hard on films, and many people do, and they do earn Academy Awards, and I know a couple of people who have been nominated in the past for like short films or the Student Academy Awards, and my mentor from grad school, his wife was a winner of one of the Student Academy Awards nearly 20 years ago. So I mean, it does mean certain things, and again, I'm not trying to be snarky towards everything there, but again, it's like I'm trying to separate this whole glam and glitz, and I think some people are worthy of it, but I think that you and I do agree with the fact that I think that certain films stand the test of time, and there should be I think a limitation to how quickly we are here to judge.
Absolutely.
Again, like, how can I sit back and judge what the best film of 2015 was? I might be able to do that maybe 15 years from now.
Well, and you know this as well. A lot of these films only get released in certain theaters so they can qualify for an Oscar. So technically, to me, if you're not even showing this film to a wider audience or an actual real audience, I mean, showing it to a bunch of critics, to me, that's not a real audience.
No, to a degree, I have to agree with you. But again, it's, a wider audience is only, especially now with the advent of the $250 million film, that seems to be the only film shown to wider audiences, because 20 years ago, mid-major films were being released all the time. You would get plenty of these $10 million films.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you and I would go see them all the time.
Yes.
They would be shown in theaters. I mean, I live, Leidick, let me explain something. Leidick is west of South Bend, Indiana. And South Bend, Indiana is about a town of 100,000 people. And we really don't have as many theaters as we used to, even back in the 90s. But I mean, there's major films with major stars that do have Oscar nominations for whatever that's worth that are not even getting shown in South Bend, Indiana.
No,
I know I have Facebook friends and Twitter friends who also say the same thing. A certain movie will come out and I'll say, this movie isn't even playing in South Bend. I'd love to see it in the theater, but I can't. And I'll have Facebook friends and Twitter friends from all over the United States saying the same thing. Hey, it's not playing over here either. And this is the problem, is that, a movie like Star Wars is, you have like 20 screens in a theater or Googleplex or whatever it is, 20, 25 screens, and Star Wars is showing in 20 of them. Well, I mean, how can, like Paul is saying, how can a mid-major movie or a movie that doesn't have explosions in it, how is that going to compete?
Yeah, I mean, they're being pushed out, and I mean, these bigger films are monopolizing it because, again, it's to basically, and again, they're there to make money with a lot of these films, because you're not going to see a film, let's say like The Crying Game that came out in the early '90s, that actually gained steam over 100, what was it, at least 50 weeks that it took.
That's another thing that's totally different now. If a movie doesn't make like $100 million its first weekend, people consider it a bomb.
Exactly.
I mean, even back in the '90s, there were movies that would play weeks and weeks and sometimes months and months in a theater. You don't see that anymore.
No. I mean,
and a lot of it has to do with Blu-ray. I mean, the James Bond movie, the Spectre, the latest James Bond film, that's being released next month on Blu-ray. I mean, that film's probably still playing in some theaters. I mean, this is what the studios do. They're trying to make money because they spend so much money on these high concept movies. They have to, how do you get our money back? Well, we got to rush it out on Blu-ray. We got to rush it out on Netflix, on Xfinity, or whatever. So it's getting to the point where, we're going to, the first weekend is more important than anything else, and then we just got to make from the ancillary releases, if I'm saying that the proper way.
Yeah, they don't allow movies to basically
grow.
To slow burn and to actually.
But
you're right.
We live in a soundbite society, and I think the film goers are partly to blame for that as well. I mean, everybody has a blog, everybody has an opinion. You go on the internet, if a movie comes out, perfect example, that Fantastic Four movie, which I didn't see, which everybody says was an absolute total bomb. Well, here's the thing. Weeks before that movie was coming out, there were bloggers, not critics, not industry people, not newspaper people. There were regular bloggers coming out and saying, this movie is horrible. And I'm thinking, the movie hasn't even opened yet. How do you know how bad it is? I mean, yeah, it may look bad, but I mean, there were people already writing reviews. It's horrible. So a lot of movies don't even, like Paul said, these movies don't even get a chance to grow, because in one night, a whole bunch of bloggers can go on the internet and just totally torpedo a movie.
Yeah, and again, I mean, not all these people are seeing these films, and I mean, there are certain people that are critics that are getting these advanced screeners, but again, I just think that these movies are being prejudged just solely on just trailers, and I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But and again, I try not to be guilty of that too, because it's like the question of, will Michael Bay ever make a good film? And he is certainly, he could hit a home run here one of these days, but and
13 hours. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I've read that's a pretty decent film, and maybe it's time to give Mr. Bay a pass here. Maybe I need to go to the movies and go see that. I haven't seen a Michael Bay movie in a long time.
I can't even remember the last time I saw a Michael Bay movie in a theater, because I don't watch the Transformers movies. God, was it The Rock?
Maybe.
That's a long time ago.
I think I did see the first Transformers movie in a theater just because I wanted to see how badly my childhood was destroyed.
Yeah, note to audience, Paul is a huge Transformers fan.
I am a Generation 1 fan, and unfortunately, I hear the train horn behind me.
Yes,
that my childhood
you hear the train coming. It's rolling down the track.
Meaning that Michael Bay is coming from my childhood, and he doesn't care one bit about it. And I know, not any Megan Fox in the world is not going to make up for that.
I just realized something. I did see Pearl Harbor in the theater.
I did too. I did see
and that was after The Rock. So I just Pearl Harbor. And I am a World War II buff, so you can probably imagine how I felt about watching Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I figured it was probably a facepalm after the first 20 minutes of the film.
I hope no actual World War II veteran actually went and saw that movie, but
Oh, I think there is a difference between World War II veterans crying during Saving Private Ryan and crying during Pearl
Yes,
Harbor, because
yes,
there are two different levels of anguish there.
yeah.
So
How do we wind up talking about Michael Bay?
yeah, we really strayed off the beaten path there, but
No, we were talking about how movies are, basically if it doesn't hit the first opening weekend, literally the first opening day, everybody on the internet just oh, this movie sucks, and unfortunately a lot of people listen to that or read that and they just assume, oh well, I heard this movie sucks, and I always try, if there's a certain movie that I want to see, no matter how bad the reviews are, I'll go see it. If there's, could be a director or somebody, a star or subject matter, I usually go see it. And there has been times I've gone to theaters where there's literally been nobody else in the theater, but that's just, that's just the way it is. And I hope that people, I'm writing a blog and I'm not like trying to tell people when I, review a movie or a Blu-ray. I'm not trying to tell people how you should react to a movie. It's just my own personal opinion. But I certainly hope people think for themselves, and instead of worried about the rush that goes on the internet, because people just want to judge something just right away, that they look at movies with their own eyes and with their own opinion.
yeah, I've always said that. Social media can be a very huge benefit to certain things. It certainly has, as far as certain aspects of how I use it. But again, it's always and I always joke about it. It's always too quickly for somebody to be the first one to comment on something rather than to actually like form an opinion about something too.
Well, yeah, you want to be the one that gets the first line in, and I'm guilty of that. Oh, I came up with this great line, so I'm gonna, it's kind of like a game, where you're trying to top everybody who can, if you do live tweets like I do, I'm part of a Svengoolie live tweet, and there's been times where I've been part of Turner Classic Movies live tweets, and it's all in good fun. It can get a little bit rough sometimes, and oh my God, Batgirl's in this Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea episode, as I interrupt myself. But no, I understand what Paul's saying. Because of the way social media is, everybody wants to be as clever and as snarky as possible, because that's all part of the game. And it's kind of cool in a way, but I think sometimes that takes away from actually looking at something in a thorough manner,
Yeah, I think that we've all been guilty of the whole, oh God, this is gonna suck. But I try to dissect things a little bit more when I see it, and unfortunately I think film school has kind of hurt me in a way to like, I've had to try to separate myself when it comes to certain like popcorn films. I consider Star Wars a popcorn film, and I just wanted to sit back and separate myself.
Yeah, you just want to see a movie without trying to analyze it,
Yes.
And I catch myself, and I'm not trying to say that I'm this great sophisticated guy because I analyze movies, but there are times where I'm watching a movie and I'm thinking, now how can I explain this in my blog? And I shouldn't be doing that. I should just be watching the movie,
Yeah, and again, there have been like so many people, because again, you get these people who will sit back and separate their level of disbelief when it comes to the original Star Wars trilogy, but then they will completely pick apart the physics in Episode 7 just because they've got an axe to grind.
Yeah.
And I don't like that to a certain degree, because it's like, if you're going to believe in lightsabers, you're going to believe in the Force. At least believe in the fact that Rey can pick up on the Force really, really quickly.
Yeah.
There are certain things I can obviously forgive.
Well, from my training, if you want to call it that, I'll put that in quotation marks, of basically spending my entire life watching low-budget horror and science fiction films, my pass level when it comes to movies is probably a little bit greater than most people's. I came from a family where my dad's the type of guy, it looks like a bunch of crap, you have to have a certain type of imagination to get into film, period, I believe. And, there are certain movies where yeah, you can pick them apart, but you also have to accept what they are, for what they are. And it's very, very easy, as we keep saying, to go on the internet and just destroy something. But when you're dealing with science fiction films and horror films and imaginative films, there's a certain level of creativity there. And no, it's not going to be real. The old adage, it doesn't look real. Well, film isn't real, okay? I mean, most documentaries you can say are not really real. I mean, if you put something in front of a camera and people know that they're in front of a camera, and you can have a huge discussion on this.
Oh yeah, we could have an whole episode about just documentary film.
Yeah, I mean,
within itself.
It's what the point we're trying to get to in a roundabout way is. It's very, very easy now to go on the internet and just totally blast something. And a lot of people just love doing that. They get off on that.
Yeah, there is a very good troll culture there, and again, I mean the troll culture could come and troll us right off of this podcast. So, but I mean I guess that's the dangers that you and I do as far as putting ourselves out there. And if we're going to do that, then we have to. I've
been kind of lucky with a blog. I haven't had too much too much feedback, but I try not to be too vociferous on the blog, and I try not to really rip on people, because what, Edward Wood, no matter who it is, no matter how bad your film is, if you made a film, you made a film.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something that most people will never ever do. Most people don't have enough creativity to even watch a total film, and you have to respect anybody that's going to put anything out there.
And even with us making fun of Michael Bay earlier, I mean, you gotta at least give somebody credit enough to be creating these films to actually give the rest of the people that work on this film a job.
Exactly.
Because somewhere there's a PA working really, really hard on a Michael Bay film. I mean, they're getting the experience in the industry to do this, and it's one of those things to where I think a lot of people are just so quick to sit back and go, well, this movie sucks, and it's like, no, well, actually this movie put a lot of people to work, and again, yes, when everything's all said and done, you may just not like Pearl Harbor, but there are a lot of people there who got their chops working on that film, maybe went on to hopefully make a film that won themselves an Academy Award. So, for what it's worth.
Or God, I can't remember what I was going to say.
I'm sorry I threw that.
You've blown me out.
Yeah, right now I'm currently putting up the netting in the baseball stadium of Dan's mind to make sure that no foul balls hit him.
No, I want the foul balls to hit me in the head. I really do. That's part of the game. Carlton Fisk would want that foul ball to hit you in the head.
Yes,
Paul.
he would.
Carlton Fisk is a man's man.
Carlton Fisk would not allow me to draw the dollar sign in the dirt.
The commander. As we speak, there's a lithograph of Carlton Fisk waving the ball fair in the '75 World Series in my house. So, and right behind us is a replica of a Metropolis poster. So, there you go.
Yeah, we want to give you an idea of the surroundings that we're in right now.
The rather humble, extremely humble surroundings that we are in.
But no. I mean, that's. I mean, I'd rather be inside here in the humble surroundings, instead of the dangerous nightlife, which is of Leidick, Indiana. So, I mean, we could wander our way across the street and
to the local tavern.
Yes, and consume a few
overpriced beers.
Yes, and
okay,
and maybe get into a conversation about the Deer Hunter with
the
older gentleman maybe
Deer
singing
Hunter
at the bar, or maybe Rocky 2, but
Rocky 2 is a very good movie.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything bad about Rocky 2. I even like Rocky 3.
Well, I mean, Rocky 3 is a seminal film. I mean, Clubber Lang. I mean, come on. But you saw Creed. Did you see Creed?
I did not see Creed.
You did not see Creed?
No. A lot of people are saying that Creed's very good.
No, I saw Creed. I really liked it, and I really liked. I cannot remember the director's name, which makes me a fool. But I really liked what he did with it. I mean, he made it more of
We need to put a computer in front of us with internet access for the next episode, so we
Yeah,
sound
yes,
much smarter.
Yes.
And then
We're
we'll
just
impress all of
winging
you.
it here, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so-
we're literally doing
But I
it.
dare you, audience, to create a podcast and wing it without any sort of internet help. Because all we have right now is our television set that is playing old reruns.
Yeah. Watching me. Well, I watch Me TV constantly, which says something about my life. But anyway, no, Creed was very well done, and what really amazed me about it was a low budget. It felt like an independent film. It didn't have the excesses of the 1980s Rockies. Now I love the whole Rocky series. I love those 1980s Rockies. I grew up watching those movies.
Oh, yeah.
Those movies are, for a certain for people like Paul and I mean, you can drop any type of Rocky reference and people are going to get it. To me, that is the test of time for a film. Not how many awards it gets, not how much critical acclaim it gets. You can go on Facebook and drop a reference to a certain movie, and if people get it, that to me is the true test of a film.
And I also like the fact that, Vince DiCola, who did Transformers the movie soundtrack, did the soundtrack to Rocky IV. And if you really, really like synthy soundtracks, I do suggest picking it up.
Yeah, but no, Creed was very good, and I wanted to talk about the Hateful Eight, but you didn't see that either. So
No, I've been busy doing a couple of other
yeah,
things
he
right now.
he actually
and
makes movies, so he he has actual things to do. But,
so I do need. I'm actually planning on going to see the Hateful Eight if it's still playing at the Music Box in Chicago, because I'd like to see it in 70 millimeter.
yeah, you and I need to get together and go to the Music Box, which
We should go to the 70 millimeter film festival. when it comes back around.
I sad to say I've never been to the Music Box. I've been on their website and literally drooled at some of the things that they've been showing. It wasn't a couple years ago they had a Buster Keaton festival. I was like, oh jeez.
I got very, very lazy in life, and I should have put in for the film director position there at the Music Box when it was open, so I could have been maybe the person picking some of the films being screened at the Music Box. So I had to blame myself for that one there.
I think last summer after Christopher Lee died, I think they played they had like a Christopher Lee night, and it was, I think it was Horror of Dracula, and I kill myself for not, and it was during a weekday. I have to admit I do work for a living, and I have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a weekday, so that kind of hurts things as far as like doing stuff at night. But I mean that's something I probably should have tried to get to.
Yeah, there's just a thing now as far as again, I think we can spend a whole episode on the digital versus film debate as well. But I mean, I would be scared to order some of those films in now and try to project them because again, you may be working with some of the last prints out there.
Well, I live near South Bend, and South Bend, of course, is where Notre Dame is at. And Notre Dame's Browning Cinema, they show a lot of classic films, independent films, art films. They had a season of Akira Kurosawa a couple years ago, and I was able to see The Hidden Fortress there in a theater, and I believe that was 35 millimeter. They showed Throne of Blood. But anyway, a lot of their movies now, and I will give them credit, at least they say it in their little program online, DCP or 35 millimeter,
Yes.
and unfortunately more and more of them are going to DCP. There's a theater, it is called the Vickers Theater in Three Oaks, Michigan. That's in the extreme southwestern part of Michigan. They used to have a silent film festival there that I actually attended, and I think 5 other people attended with me. Anyway, they are now gone to digital, and that is kind of an artsy type of theater. They show a lot of movies that don't get shown in South Bend, and unfortunately that's just, that's the way it is all over. I have a lot of Facebook friends who live in New York City, and I'm amazed at the fact that literally every night they can go to some theater in New York City and watch a 35 millimeter print of, say, The Maltese Falcon or some film. I mean, that would just be absolute heaven for me.
Yeah, it's just kind of our geographical limitations here, and again, I have some abilities to see certain things in Chicago. That
There's always film festivals going on in Chicago. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff going on there.
But to have the advantage of living out in LA or New York City to see some of these, the ability to see certain films that you just can't see, or you just may never be able to see just because of where you're located.
Yeah.
Because we're just living in a different era now. But it's even 30 years ago. A lot of these people weren't going to see these, some of these films. So
Well, here's a point we should talk about: the difference between seeing a film in a theater and seeing a film in your house. And I believe there is a difference. And I'd like to get your opinion on this, since you're more of a techie guy than I am,
Okay.
about all the kids streaming movies and TV shows on their little devices. Do you think it's, I wouldn't say right, maybe that's the wrong phrasing, but how do you feel about people watching films meant to be seen in widescreen on the iPad or your net, notebooks or whatever it is they?
Well,
they
I
do?
mean, well, the thing is that we can talk about that, but I'm trying to, because there are many ways that we've been watching film. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, it was big to rent movies and still bring them home and watch them. And
pan and scan.
Yeah, and we were watching them in pan and scan quite a bit. And I remember when I was a kid, and I saw some of the films even on television that were shown in the right format scale, and it always just kind of made me curious. And strangely enough, I mean, I remember when I was a kid and I watched Star Trek IV for the first time, and Leonard Nimoy put that film out only in widescreen.
Yeah. They started. I think it was like the mid '80s that they actually started doing that, putting them on a widescreen, a home video. I remember Siskel and Ebert actually did a program about that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even realize, it was in the 80s that I just started getting into movies and watching certain movies. I didn't even realize how much of a difference widescreen was because I was so used to watching, things on the typical square TV screen. And Siskel and Ebert went out of their way to point that out, and they were like one of the first people, I believe. I mean, now everybody has widescreen TVs. Everybody kind of takes it for granted now.
But again, your widescreen TV sometimes isn't the proper format. Also,
well, yeah, I mean, American Movie Classics shows a lot of 235 movies in 185 because people don't like the black bars, even and you're a cinematographer, you know this. There's even if you're cutting a sliver of the screen off, when it comes to framing and pictorial choices for the shot, I mean,
yes.
you're messing with the film.
You are, and to get back to to Star Trek IV, which I know all of you adore and love, but
it had whales in it.
But the great part about it is that Leonard Nimoy started off that film. There was a little segment at the beginning of the film when you watched it where he explains why he's releasing it the way he's releasing it, and talks about the elements of widescreen and preserving the natural aspect ratio of film. And in 1986, I guess it would have came out in 1987 on video because things didn't come out that quickly back
that's another thing.
in the 80s, and it would have cost you $100 and some odd in VHS back in the day. But I remember seeing that for the first time on VHS and seeing that. And so in 1987, I would have been 12, and that immediately basically hooked me on the widescreen format. And then from there on out, I was always looking for the actual aspect ratio of films. And, you like I mean, we would probably go in the same. There used to be a place called Media Play in town, and they actually would have a section of
widescreen
VHS.
And this is VHS. This wasn't, this is before DVD. This is VHS. I and Paul were buying VHS and widescreen, and there were people who thought we were nuts for doing it. Because remember, we didn't have widescreen TVs back then.
No, we had 24-inch TVs if we were lucky, and then basically shrinking it down.
Exactly, yeah. It wasn't the best way to see it, but I wanted to see, and I'm a huge Sergio Leone fan. And for years and years, when I was starting to get into movies, I was watching these films in pan and scan. That is totally the wrong way to see a Sergio Leone film. Exactly. I mean, that's like watching a Sergio Leone film with like a blanket wrapped around your head. because Sergio Leone, if there's one director, I mean, there's several directors, but if there's really one director, you have to see it in widescreen. It is Sergio Leone, and it's amazing how great and how well known his movies are, because for years and years and years, people were not able to watch them the way they were supposed to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and again, maybe I'm not answering your original question about the way of viewing films, especially on smaller devices. I mean, I think that's just one of the ways that people are viewing media now, and it's something that, as somebody who makes content, you're
just trying to get your content out there
yes.
as many forms as possible.
Yes, and I think if that's a way that your audience is going to view your particular product, that's the way it's going to be. But again, we can have a huge debate on this about how to capture this material and what to use when you're capturing this material, because again, all of us, anybody who makes a film wants to eventually see it on a bigger screen. I mean, that was a very important thing to me, is to view it in a theater with a bunch of my peers, because that's, and maybe some other people would rather see it in a smaller room on a smaller screen. But again,
but you can also say that certain films, they play differently when you're with an audience as opposed to you seeing it,
most definitely.
in especially comedies.
Oh yes.
I mean, there's a lot of comedies it's a social thing. If everybody in a room is laughing at something, you're going to laugh at it because you don't want to be like, yo, that guy, he doesn't get it. And then there's you can go to the dumbest Adam Sandler movie, and if you're surrounded by hundreds of people, you're probably going to laugh.
The dumbest Adam Sandler movie, not just the Adam Sandler movie, but the dumbest.
The dumbest Adam Sandler.
So just make sure when you're out there, go see the dumbest Adam Sandler movie.
But
I don't know what that is.
You could be sitting on your couch at home on a Monday afternoon, you're channel surfing, you can hit that same movie, and you can just sit there and not have any emotional reaction to it whatsoever. And I don't go to opening nights anymore. I actually did go Thursday night to Star Wars: The Force Awakens because it was Star Wars. But I'm sure Paul did this too. I used to go to opening nights and midnight showings. And one of the reasons I quit doing that is because the way people act in movie theaters, which is, I mean, I actually go to because I want to see the movie. But there are certain movies, especially the blockbuster type movies, where if the audience gets into it, you probably will have a better time. And
yeah, I agree there. I mean, I missed that feeling, and that's why I went to go see Star Wars on opening night, and it was just one of those things. I just wanted to do that and kind of experience that, and just I wasn't going to get upset by somebody, And again, there was a screening of Star Wars. I went to go see it the second time, and of course I sat in front of a couple of chatty younger women, and it was fine for them to chat for a certain amount of time, but when it was time to actually watch the film, when my friend Christopher shushed them, and they actually were quiet and again, I don't mind if somebody wants to react to a film and go, oh my gosh, but I don't care about what outfit you bought at Forever 21. that has nothing to pertain to why.
Well, I was lucky when I went and saw The Force Awakens on a Thursday night because the audience was packed, but I mean everybody was dead quiet during the movie. So these were people that actually wanted to see the movie, that wanted to experience it. And sometimes you don't get that. I mean, you and I have been there together. We've been through that.
Yes.
So.
One of these days I will talk about the wonderful two older ladies.
I know you're going to bring that up.
While Dan and I were trying to absorb The Departed, and
I'll never see The Departed the same way because of what we experienced.
And I'm sorry that I had to actually say something to the two ladies behind me that decided that they wanted to actually have their own commentary.
They had their own.
Film.
I've been there before where and it's all it's funny because people think kids don't know how to act in the theater. I've actually found that it's actually older people that don't know how to act in the theater. And my theory on that is that older people older Americans, I don't know how it is in other countries, older Americans don't go out to theaters very much. So when they do, it's kind of like a new experience to them, and they don't know how to, react to it, because it's always the older people that seem to just, want to go off and just start talking for no reason in a movie theater. I don't. Maybe when I get old and I'm not that far away from it, maybe I'll just start losing it and just start, blathering out things. But
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna create a commentary in a film in a theater. I mean, I'm not gonna ruin your experience in it to watch a film. I mean, I may react to a certain kind of thing. I mean, but again, I'm not going to be the person that's going to clap when I see the Millennium Falcon in Episode 7. I'm just not that kind of person. And again, I'm fine with somebody who does. I mean, that I get that. Or when they see the Lucasfilm logo come up and it's Star Wars is ready to begin, I get that sort of kind of vibe that's happening. But I mean, I don't care, and even at sporting events, I don't care to hear somebody's commentary of a game behind me because I know what I'm watching. And I know what I'm absorbing. I don't need 15 Joe Bucks to sit back and talk to me.
You don't need one Joe Buck.
Yeah, but
let alone 15 of them.
Well, I was hoping that maybe Michael Keaton could kind of like come across and do a multiplicity film crossover that includes a bunch of Joe Bucks, because I think maybe that's what we need in life.
If you write a synopsis of that, you might actually get that sold. Some studio might actually buy that. So
well, then I'm going to copyright this podcast.
Just keep that down. And I don't want to see that movie.
Yeah, if that movie does,
it'll probably be
happen,
like a Birdman. It'll be like the kind of rip-off of Birdman, basically.
Well, yeah.
Multiplicity meets Birdman meets...
With Joe Buck.
With Joe Buck.
And I really hope Tim McCarver makes a cameo in that. So, I hope so.
But I guess to wrap up our little tangent on movie theaters, I do think if you can, and sometimes you cannot, I do think to really see a movie, I think you really do need to see it in a theater.
I agree, and I will strongly suggest that you do not see it in 3D if it was not created for.
Yes,
3D. I understand.
I'm not a 3D fan.
But if a film is made for 3D, I suggest that you go see it. But if you're going to watch Star Wars, watch it in all of its wonderful two-dimensional flat screen.
And I've told this to people, I'm sure Paul has, I've tried to explain to people, just because you convert a film to 3D does not mean that it's supposed to be in 3D. It's just a gimmick. It's just a gimmick to make you pay more money. And I've tried to explain that to people, and it's like, oh, but 3D is cool. So,
And again, it's a matter of personal choice, and I understand that. But again, I think you're honestly doing the person who photographed the film a disservice to that. But again, these studios are doing that to themselves. I mean,
exactly. They want the extra money that comes from 3D, and a lot of people assume that because a film is in 3D that it's right for the family, and that's once again that would be in a future podcast where we go over the rating systems and all this, that, and the other thing. But that's I don't really know where that comes from. I think it comes from all the Pixar movies and all the computer animated films being in 3D. But there's this urban legend that, well, the movie's in 3D, so it's good for kids. Well, that's not necessarily true.
No, I don't think so, because I really don't want to see a 3D version of Boogie Nights. So let's not go there.
Okay.
So, or Showgirls. Well, maybe Showgirls.
Well, but I mean that hasn't been rebooted yet, so I'm waiting for I mean Jennifer Lawrence needs something to do over the next 2 weeks. Before she gets her next Golden Globe / Oscar / People's Choice Awards.
Or before Hollywood decides that she isn't able to be in films anymore because
she's too old.
She can't keep up that Hollywood thin female look, which is it's a very unfortunate, because I think there are plenty of actresses out there that are very good at what they do, and I think they're not getting work because they don't fit a certain kind of Hollywood movie star mold.
Well, let me put this out there. You know me being the older film buff. Mm-hmm. I will say one of my personal opinions is that I think women had better roles in the 1930s than they do today.
Okay, I can see that.
If you look at the actresses in the 1930s, there was a certain genre of film called the woman's film, which I realize is maybe politically incorrect. But I mean, this was a very popular genre in Hollywood during those days, and you had and Barbara Stanwyck, Betty Davis, Marlene Dietrich. I could just go on and on. Greta Garbo. I mean, these were very popular films. Remember, you didn't have TV back then, and these films were made for a particular female audience. But I watch old films all the time. I shouldn't say old, and I'm absolutely convinced that the women of the 30s and the 40s had better roles than they had today. People assume, well, back then, they had to wear certain clothes and they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. People think because of the censorship back then that the stories were more naive. That has nothing. And I'm constantly surprised at how more complex the complexity of older films, and I think a lot of it is just that people, it's black and white, it has to be naive, it has to be stupid. And I think if people really sit down and watch these movies and realize the complexity that is there, it's far more complex than films today. I mean, just because they don't use curse words, or just because they don't take their clothes off, doesn't mean that it's not complex or that it's naive. I think people have to look beyond that. So, and I think it's rather funny and ironic that in an industry that I don't want to bring up politics, but in an industry that is supposed to swing a certain way politically, the way women and minorities and non-Caucasians are treated in the industry and the roles that they have to play. I mean, you can say that it's even worse than in the 30s and 40s in some aspects.
I have to agree there. I mean, I just think that there's just, again, a certain look or a certain way that certain things are supposed to be, and I think that if you're trying to break certain grounds, I mean, I think that you could very well get blacklisted or just not be quote unquote in the mainstream. So I mean, no, I have to agree there. So, or basically try to create a film that's of more, let's say, like a feminist film, that it kind of will get pushed to the side.
Yeah, well, the only movies you really see now that are about women or have women in the major roles in them seems to be goofy or stupid romantic comedies or raunchy romantic comedies. You don't see too many dramas or just normal films. It seems to me with having major female characters.
Or basically your female characters have very male kind of traits. It's kind of like that newer Julia Roberts film where she's like,
oh yeah, she's like the tough woman. She's trying to get revenge on
exactly.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And she's basically like stalking this killer person
because she's old now, so this is what she has to do. She can't. And once again, I have to go back to the classic films. Joan Crawford and Betty Davis and Barbara Stanwyck. These ladies in their 50s and their 60s were still doing leading roles in mainstream films. They weren't shut to the side the way so many actresses are today. I just think it's rather ironic because people look down on classic films. Oh, the censorship and they couldn't do anything. And well, actually, they were far more. I mean, I'm not advocating censorship in any way, but I think in some ways the censorship actually forced movie makers to be more inventive back in those days.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, it's also like a select version. I mean, again, censorship can always be selective too, and especially for how they were trying to do certain things in the 30s. And again, it's just, I also think that there's a limit to where, some of these studios won't push an envelope.
Oh yeah.
Past a certain kind of point.
And once again, because there's so much money made on these movies, I mean, I know they want, we're basically doing a reboot, and it's basically the same old stuff, but at least we'll get our money back. It's that type of thinking, I think.
Yeah, again, and again, they're there to make money. I mean, for the most part, I mean, you're not going to have the $250 million Kubrick film. I mean, you're not going to have, Terrence Malick isn't going to be making a $300 million film. They're just,
It would be interesting to see somebody like that make a that's who I would hire to make a superhero movie just to see how it would turn out.
I would be too. So if there's any like studio exec out there who just wants to completely go crazy and start just, you want to start throwing money around.
Once again, the studios aren't run by one person like they were in the 30s and the 40s. They're run by these global international corporations that have a bottom line, and they're oh, you're not going to take so.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think we'll probably start tackling the element and the topics of remakes and the same story being told over and over again, because again, and maybe the level of unoriginality in Hollywood, and to start talking about, can there be an original script made and sold, and actually a story that we can, and again, maybe throwing some examples out there, and just if you're listening to this, comment, give us some examples give us some examples or some topics to talk about here. And I have no idea what we're watching on MeTV right now, but it's
Voyage Bottom of the Sea,
okay.
and I think because Irwin Allen, I think it's Irving Allen or Irwin Allen, and I know I got Facebook friends who are gonna jump all over me for getting his name wrong. He did like one of the Lost World movies, so I think he took like footage of it just to fill out these TV shows. Like you always saw the two lizards always fighting each other in all these TV shows. It's the same footage over and over again. There's the giant spider. You always got to have a giant spider in these things. And,
But
we're like way off
yes,
tangent.
yeah,
Maybe
we're watching black and white television here with a spider attacking a scantily clad woman in this. So,
Cave woman. We're in Josh Kennedy territory.
Yes. So
sorry, Josh.
Yes. So I mean, I've completely run off topic here, and we're already an hour into this podcast.
Okay,
so I think we're gonna call it an evening tonight on that note. But again,
well, before we leave, can you tell people how they can see Without Charity if they'd be interested in seeing it?
Well, eventually I'm going to put Without Charity up on certain platforms for free, and so that everybody can start seeing it. Right now it's in the film festival mode, so I kind of have to keep it off of the free level here. So the website is withoutcharity.com. There is a Facebook page also by the same name, Without Charity. That you can like the page, and I did an additional interview with Charity, and I mean no pun intended there, but to kind of update where she is now, and to basically keep everything fresh. And I've been talking with my mentor from film school about creating another edit to the film, possibly to show in other major film markets, because he said that it may help it in that case. So it's something that I'm kind of throwing around here and discussing. But the editing process, it is lengthy, and I'm happy with where it is right now because of the fact of kind of towing that line in a documentary film as far as bias is concerned. Because when you have certain films, you kind of, especially for a film like this that involves subject matter of crime, especially when you have people on both sides of it, you kind of want to stray not too far from that neutral line.
I mean, it's and Paul is my friend, but I have seen Without Charity, and it is a fantastic film. I totally recommend it.
I appreciate that.
It is not a happy joy film, but it's not a happy joy subject, and I'm really impressed by the way he did really try to be as fair as possible. I mean, and I'm not, like I've said, I'm not just saying it because he's sitting next to me. I'm saying it because that's the actual truth. So I really do recommend it.
I appreciate that, and again, it's I did a film from the area that I'm from because and unfortunately for some, I actually like where I'm from, from the South Bend area. But it's a story that it's close to me, and I understand the certain, I guess what you would say, the consequences of certain actions that I would have taken as a filmmaker on a film like this, because there needs to be a certain amount of responsibility as a filmmaker, and especially for a documentary film. I believe that certain filmmakers out there sometimes lose their ethical boundaries when they're making films, and
when the director of a documentary is more famous than his subject.
Yes, exactly. And we won't mention any names.
I think the audience can kind of figure out what we're referring to there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I from that filmmaker, I do like some of their work. I really do, especially some of the early work. But I think that you really need to when you're tackling subject matters that are very very personal for a lot of people, that you've got to make sure that you stay close to like your filmmaking ethics, because again, it needs to be about the film. It needs to be about the art. It isn't, especially with documentary. I don't expect to retire to a 16-bedroom house after making a film like this, because it's more personal to me to make a film like that, because I want to be involved in especially for future films that I'm making too. Documentary is a difficult subject to handle, because you've got to be in a mindset to do it, and to try to do it correctly, and I hope I try to do that. So I mean, again, there are certain people that didn't want this film to be made, because again, it's very personal to them. I mean, people had lost loved ones, and they and by all means, their opinion, they're right. They're right to have that opinion, and I can't sit back and say that they're wrong about that, because I can't, it's a very very strong emotional thing for some people.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate it, Dan. I really do.
All right. You're welcome.
So
anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I'm sure most of you probably are asleep by now.
yes,
So
if you made it this far,
I congratulate you.
we will give you the Konami
and
code.
I will eventually be posting this on my blog page and the Facebook page, and hopefully we'll be back together doing this again shortly. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
This is Paul Lyzun,
Hey, this is Dan Day.
the creator of the Hitless Wonder Movie Blog, and good night to everyone.
Good night, everyone.